Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Have a Moment. I am your host, Anahata Holly Hollowell, founder of the flow state technique, and we're continuing our really enlightening conversation with Lorraine Bennington. She's a pioneering hypnotherapist and licensed psychologist with over 4 decades of experience. And I think I get along with her so well because she really believes that we are inherently whole and well. And she sees herself as more of a detective of the mind, helping clients really navigate their challenges into spaces of ease and flow and sovereignty. And it's a beautiful way to see things. And, in fact, the root of the word healing is return to the memory of wholeness. So indeed, we need more detectives like you, Lorraine. And so in part one, guys, we were exploring the foundations of hypnotherapy, her integrated approach, blending spirituality and psychology, and just the transformative potential and the true science. That's the exciting thing, is that science is catching up and proving all of these things that used to just be sort of out there and you just had to believe them. Well, now we can see studies. This works, it works, it works. And so I recommend checking out the first interview that we did, and I'll put a link in the description at the end of this one as well. So today we're going to dive deeper into some practical applications of hypnotherapy, taking a look at how it could help you achieve your goals. We're going to explore, does it enhance your performance? Does it boost your creativity? These are all parts of the flow state technique, and I'm sure Lorraine's going to just be able to expose and infuse some amazing conversation. We are so excited to have her back. So welcome back.
Great to be back.
All right. So I talk a lot about the flow state technique, and I really, I see it as peak performance. And I also see that hypnosis is key in peak performance because you're altering that state of mind, those limitations. How do you see hypnotherapy being able to really help people achieve the best version of themselves, whatever that means to them?
Well, I think this whole inner world, outer world performance started way back with Tim Gallway, the inner game of golf, the inner game of tennis, bringing in meditative states into sports. And that was back, I think, in the 80s when it was first published. So the sense that when we get still and when we picture ourselves going through a sequence of events, like if you're a basketball player, seeing yourself throwing the ball into the hoop and getting it every time, after a while, your body starts remembering what you've created in your subconscious. So that applies for everything. If you want to visualize yourself a successful speaker, first of all, it's a good idea to get rid of fears of public speaking, but then it's also really important to picture yourself standing up in front of an audience in that inner state where you're rehearsing without the fear of actually doing it, because once you're good at doing it in the inner world, it becomes really easy to then do it in the outer world. It's rehearsal. It's like every actor knows, you don't just learn a script and then immediately film or go on stage. There's a series of rehearsals. And what we're doing in the inner state, in that hypnotic or trance or flow state, whatever you want to call it, is that we're using that state to rehearse what we want, or if we're doing regression, to clear out what's getting in the way and then rehearse what we want. So it doesn't work to just, it's great to visualize what you want, but if you have an equally strong opposite belief, it's not going to work as well.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Right? I know that firsthand. So you've been leading seminars and other things, since the 1980s. And I'm curious, how do you incorporate some hypnotherapy principles in live seminars for participants to sort of achieve their goals collectively? And is there something you can do with us right now, an activity that people can implement as a taste of hypnotherapy principles and how it can be used to improve their life?
Sure. So yes, and you just took me back to Kauai, and I was asked to be a speaker at the Rotary Club on Kauai. And I started talking, and then I just brought people into a quiet state. And later they said that club had never been quiet before. That was the first time in the history of the Rotary Club that you could have heard a pin drop, because people are so used to chattering, both externally and internally. And when we just get still, there's so much power in stillness, in being present. We talk about being in the now. What does that mean? It's so easy to get distracted into thinking into the future or concern about the past, instead of all the power is in the now. Everything that we can do is right here and now. There really isn't anything else. Whatever you did this morning or I did this morning doesn't exist. You and I are just in this present time, which means this is the moment of change. And if people want to achieve more, this is the time they can do it. Distracting thoughts keep us from achieving, right? Being pulled here and there, worry thoughts about what could happen or what might happen is going to interfere with actually directional thinking, right? Excuse me.
Absolutely. So, are there some techniques you can share that would help our audience in their daily lives to be more present, to enhance their focus, to even maybe deal with stress? Because I know it's just a constant in our day and age with the amount of information coming at us and the amount of directions we're being pulled in daily, especially with our devices. Do you have any self-hypnosis techniques that people can use in their daily life?
Well, I'm actually going to share a little technique which will lead you into a semi-hypnotic state, but it's very easy to do. And it's an awareness technique. I'll do it with you, but I'll ask people out there to do it themselves. So I am aware. The phrase begins, I am aware. And you either do sight, smell, sound, touch, taste, nothing else, the 5 senses. So when you do this for 5 minutes, you're going to be in a flow state. You're going to be in a meditative state, but we'll do it for a few minutes just so people get the idea. Okay, so I'll do it with you. I am aware of the green of the tree outside my window. I am aware of a feeling of a breeze coming from my fan. You do too.
I am aware of the colors on my screen. I am aware of the sound of my voice as it reaches the microphone.
I am aware of the feeling of my hands touching each other in my lap. I am aware of the comfort of the chair behind my back.
I am aware of the bouncing ball that I'm sitting on and how it moves me up and down. I am aware of the breath that's coming in and out of my body.
I am aware of the distant sound of a bird. I am aware of the sound of the wind as it blows through the trees outside.
I am aware also of a crow cawing outside and a truck driving down the road near my house. I am aware of the lights illuminating the video that is streaming and the brightness, the color of those lights.
I am aware of the feeling of my heart beating, and I am aware of the slowing down of my breath.
I am aware of the ring on my finger as I slide it on and off. I'm aware of my throat as I swallow.
I am aware of the feeling in my eyes blinking as I look at the bright screen. I am aware of the texture of the sweater on my arms and back.
I am aware of the feeling I get when I interview people and connect with them, and my smile and the energy and the gratitude that I have for you coming on the show and being with us today.
So that's lovely. And that gives a taste. Can you feel right away everything became now and present and in the
Yes.
moment and no extraneous thought?
I love it. And that is really the cornerstone of a flow state. You can't be in the past, you can't be in the future. You've got to be present in the now. And I always say, we're receiving over 11 bits, they call it bits of information per second. And yet our conscious mind can only hone in on 40. Now, 40 seems like a lot, but out of 11 million, so our subconscious mind is really a supercomputer, one that we can retrain and reframe. And there's a fascinating part to neuroscience that I love, which is the RAS. I don't know if you've heard of the reticular activating system, and it's sort of like our biology's way of hashtagging things. It's like if you never notice this certain color car, and then you become interested in that car because you think it's unique, and then you drive it off the lot, and then suddenly you see that same color car and model everywhere, and you go, what the heck's happening? Well, it's now come into the important zone of whatever was hashtagged as that. So now you're kind of recognizing it more. And so part of the flow state technique is helping people define what they want so that they can hashtag what they want so that the universe brings it to them. And so I'd love for you to chat about your findings and your experience in terms of magnetism and how hypnotherapy really helps you to take control of your energy signature and what's coming into your experience.
I love this question, and it reminds me very much of Huna, which is the Hawaiian training that I did with Dr. Serge King, who wrote Urban Shaman. If you want to make a note, it's a great book. But he was on Kauai and my teacher, and he had 7 principles of Huna, all of which are psychologically sound. And the first is energy flows where attention goes. Now is the moment of power. All power comes from within. Effectiveness is the measure of truth. To love is to be happy with. Wonderful, wonderful phrases. But energy flows where attention goes is exactly what you're talking about. So I first noticed it back when I was a young woman, learning Spanish. And God knows, I lived in Montreal, and everywhere I went, people were speaking Spanish. It was just fascinating in a French-speaking city. The minute I started learning Spanish, that's all I perceived. And then I got pregnant with my first child, and guess what? All I saw were pregnant women. It was fascinating. I went, where did they all come from? They weren't here before, but oh my God, everyone's pregnant. And then when I gave birth to my son, everyone else had babies. The pregnant women had disappeared, and all I saw were mothers with children. So I started being really fascinated with the way that the brain sees what it's focused on. And again, with this principle, energy flows where attention goes, it absolutely made sense. This is what we're doing. We zero in on something, and then it becomes in our field of awareness.
It certainly does. And so these are like gateways, I feel like. Once people know this, then they can start fine tuning. Well, if that's true, what do I want more of in my life? And what do I want less of? And instead of forcing something to go away, that's just saying yes to the universe. You simply take your focus off of it. And so it's interesting how there's power through lack of energy as well, just retreating and pulling back. Now, in the flow state technique, we work with those realms of potential and really paving that pathway. And I talk about the genius zone a lot with my technique, and that's just really honing in on your purpose, your passion, what would be most aligned, your ikigai model, if you will, what's good for you, what's good for the planet, et cetera. And so how can hypnotherapy help individuals maybe discover or rediscover? You know, they always say, if you want to do something that you love, think back to, you know, circa 5 years old when you used to say, when I grow up, I want to be. How can hypnotherapy really help people discover what their purpose, passion is, so they can align their values with it? Because a lot of times people are just lost and they aren't sure of like, what's the point of life? And passion really is the juice that makes you happy. So maybe you could talk about how hypnotherapy can help people discover or access their genius zone.
Well, there's several components to that, but I think the first thing is to absolutely stop all negative talk that I can't, I won't be able to, it's a dream. What makes me think that I can? My parents said that, because the language that we speak, I catch people a lot of times who don't even realize how much they're diminishing themselves. And that's the first step, is just put the diminishing away, just catch it and go, no, what if it's possible? What if what you really wanted at 5 is possible, or a version of that? Because a lot of time the child at 5 has a sense of their joy and their direction, but maybe not all the adult careers that can express that particular aspect of their personality. And so just tuning into that kernel, you can go back to what was your joy when you were little? What brought you joy? You can do regression to early childhood, positive memory gathering in hypnosis, where you go back and remember some wonderful experiences that brought you joy and look at the connecting thread between all of those experiences. Opening a door into the inner mind, or the house of the subconscious, that says right career, right path. When people have a choice and they don't know what to do, I'll often have them go to a crossroads, and there's 3 paths in hypnosis. Walk down each path. How does it feel? They're going to know. Walk into the second future. Walk into the third future. Come back to the crossroads. Now what? How do you feel about each of those options? Once you're in that deeper mind, you are truly into your inner authenticity, as opposed to what you were told, or the fear of losing a job, or the fear of breaking out. There's a lot of fears that people have. And the first thing is get to that core place of what is the joy, right? And then we can look at how to pragmatically build that. Obviously, there are practical skills involved as well, and timing and people's timing. There's so many factors, but I think the first is using that inner vision to say, what do I want? And once you have a vision, let's say you really see you want to go back to school and become a marketing consultant or something, then start picturing yourself, see yourself in the future as that, in that environment, going out to clients, walking around with all these great ideas and sharing them. Make it real, because after a while, the mind will begin to go, oh, this is possible. And it's much easier to do when you've already seen and visualized it in your subconscious.
Yeah. And I know firsthand it works. It works. It works. You know, hypnotherapy, it's sort of like keeping you, giving you the skills you need to stay present in the now, addressing the past and how that's informing the now, and also visioning forward. It's like, as you said, if you vision the wish fulfilled as if it is so, that's actually how I manifested my soulmate. And you know, it was baby steps. It started, and then finally, when I was totally ready to receive, I visualized the future as if it was so, as a memory almost. It was so familiar that then my subconscious didn't say, that's not you, that's risky, that's outside of your identity. It just brought it to me because it was me and it was a memory, and it's like a done deal. And so I see, like, looking into the future of how hypnotherapy is evolving. What's your take on, you know, the context of where we could go with this in terms of personal development, business coaching? You know, everyone's talking about coaches these days, and I think hypnotherapy is going to evolve into these new spaces. What's been your thought process on the exciting cusp of where we're headed as a society, using hypnotherapy more.
Well, before I go into that, your story reminded me of a similar story of mine, so I'll share it with you. Since I was a little girl, I was going to live in Hawaii. My mother couldn't believe it. I was 7, 8. I'm going to live in Hawaii, Mom. You know, Montreal is like, what? You're going to live in Hawaii? Anyway, I started doing things like going to the islands, and I opened a bank account. And every time I went to Pukalani, I put money in instead of taking it out. And I used that as I'm going to be living here one day. And it became really, really clear. And then I ended up meeting a Hawaiian guy in Vancouver, marrying him and moving to the islands. But it started, yeah, exactly. But it started with that, making it real, making it so tangible, convincing the subconscious. And again, for me, the bank account was a tangible thing that I could do that reminded my subconscious it's not just in here, there's an external validation. So to corroborate your story, that's my version of that story, right?
Wonderful. Yeah. Now segue into the second half, if you will, how hypnotherapy is probably going to take this massive evolution in the upcoming months and years. And we're just on the cusp of what it can do. Where do you think it's headed?
Well, you said some really interesting things just before. I think that coaching and hypnosis and energy psychology, all these things that rewire the brain, all go together. And when I started coaching, honestly, coaching didn't exist. I was doing coaching for success for women in the early 80s before the coaching model actually, but it was just organically there for me. And working with people's resistance to success is part of success coaching, because you can't just give people direction if some part of you knows that they're sabotaging themselves. So there needs to be some addressing the internal sabotages, which can be subtle. I call the middle class ceiling as a subtle sabotage, believing we can only go so far and no more, right? There's, we usually have a sense of, if my parents did this, some people feel guilty surpassing their parents' success. And it's subconscious. They don't realize that there's this internal feeling, I don't want my parents to feel less than, so I can achieve what they did, but not more, right? So there's moving through the subtleties so that we can actually have a clear vision of all of possibilities that we want to achieve in our life. So with visualizing, with affirming, but again, gradual affirming until you get to the point where you can do direct affirming, right? So gradual till it's true. And then yes, you can say it, picturing it happening, clearing any sabotages along the way. It's all part of an effective coaching model, but you can't, I would say coaches should not be doing deep therapeutic work, because you need to know when things come up, how to handle it. So my training as a psychologist is helpful there, but it isn't all the work. The work is also about just empowering people to move forward in their vision of what they want to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. 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 So I'm sure most people listening to this are really eager to learn more from you and with you. And I certainly appreciate your expertise and the conversation. I wish we could go on for hours and hours. I'm definitely having you on the show again. I really would love to have you as a staple expert in panels when I do live sessions and stuff, guys. Lorraine's amazing. She does have a series of hypnotherapy MP3s that are available on her website. Also, reach out to her if you want to book a session. You can contact her through her website, creativetransformations.ca. And she has even offered her email address. So go connect with her. And of course, with me, like, subscribe, follow. And for our listeners who are intrigued by the connections that we've drawn between hypnotherapy and the flow state technique, I want to remind you that you're invited to explore FST with us further. And you can learn more about the flow state technique and what the components are at neuro-manifesting.com. Again, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and to this YouTube channel if you have a moment. And also, if you know of someone that I should bring on the show, this is a conversation. This is your channel as well. And I'd love to get into some spaces that you're interested about. Reach out. And thanks for tuning in today, and especially to our beautiful guests. And as I always say, take a moment to flow and watch yourself grow. I am your host, Anahata Holly Hollowell. And until another now, be in it. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for joining us. Is there any final words you would like to say before we end today's session?
It is just such a joy to connect with you, Holly, and to be in this space with all your listeners and viewers. And I look forward to continuing the dialogue.
We do as well. Can't wait, guys. All right. Much love to you and yours. We will chat soon. Bye for now, everyone.